Hello, my name is William Watts. I am doing my Murch presentation, I guess, and my three chapters that I had to do were the rule of six, misdirection, and seeing around the edge of the frame. For the first, the rule of six is, I guess, Murch's tips on how to do an ideal cut. So he's got six things to focus on when making a cut. You've got emotion, story, rhythm, eye trace, two-dimensional plane of screen, and then three-dimensional space of action. And basically, what all these things are is how a cut will affect the scene. So emotion is obviously how this scene would feel with the cut in place. You have story, which would mean how it advances the plot. Rhythm, which would hit the right story beat or like musical, lyrical, emotional beat. Eye trace is where the audience would focus and what they'd find their eyes drawn to first. You've got the two-dimensional plane of screen, which is the 3D image you've got captured transposed onto a 2D screen. So what the audience would see. And then the three-dimensional space of action, which I understand a little less, but it's basically like how the cut will be continuity wise. Like, will this cut happen and then something will have changed in the background? And that's, I don't know, it's layered in different, it's like a checks and balances kind of thing. So we've got a pie chart here. And I guess emotion is the most important thing. If your scene falls flat, if it doesn't feel right, then that's a big problem. Usually you'll be able to hit every single one of these. It's not really a problem all the time. But if you do have to sacrifice some, it's better to start at the bottom. And this is all listed out in order. So emotion is the most important, right behind story and rhythm. If you have to sacrifice something, you should always start with 3D space and then work your way up. But if you have, for say, sacrifice emotion, but have everything else right, it still wouldn't be right. It's like it's always the lowest rung of the ladder you cut first, and you can't really replace that rung with another one because then you wouldn't be able to climb all the way up. Um, so yeah, here we go. Emotion is 51% of it, like it said, and then story, rhythm, eye trace, 2D, and then 3D. It's really just emotion above all. The next chapter that I had to work on was misdirection. And basically, in this chapter, Walter Murch goes over how movie magic is kind of like editing. He compares editing to like how Houdini does his magic tricks. You'd use all of the different techniques that you've got in your arsenal to draw the eye of the viewer to something else in the scene. It makes the audience focus on one thing rather than another. I've got a example here that I found on Google, and it's really always about like visual weight of something. So on the left, you've got the first example. I did rip this directly off of Google, by the way. On the left, you've got a big black object, and then the small, tiny snowflake, and your eye would be obviously drawn to the bigger object of the two because it holds more visual weight. On the left, you've got a red square. Got a red square and a yellow square. And in the context of like hues and saturation, the red square holds more visual weight than the yellow square. And that's just a thing for misdirection. A few tips and tricks to avoid tunnel vision. So what Walter Murch says is that it's really easy to just get so focused in on one thing that you miss everything else. And this is a little bit of misdirection on you. So what he suggests that you do is set up paper dolls on the side of your monitor, and that way it feels like you're watching behind the audience. So you're a little bit disconnected from the thing you're trying to get right and edit. It helps to take a step back and take a break before you start to get into it again, right? And that actually leads on to seeing around the edge of the frame. Um, so taking a step back was actually a pretty good segue into this, because usually when you're on a set, um, you feel like you're, I don't know, it's like, well, I've got a couple points here. You don't let feelings influence your decisions. So let's say you had a really good day filming, and you don't want to like take that and then go directly into it and be like, oh, we had so much effort on this one scene, I should definitely put that in. But then if you had taken a step back, you'd realize, oh, this is not really the best thing I could do here. Like you'd have, for example, this scene in a park. You were on the set and you were with the crew and you were having a blast, and you're like, oh wow, that was so awesome. I feel like I should work this in somehow. But that's your personal bias speaking, because you were on the set and you experienced the I guess the joy of working through it and getting it right. But that means it's kind of a little bit of your influence on how the scene looks. So if you detach yourself from it, it would maybe put into perspective, oh, this scene, it's great and all, but it really doesn't fit in cohesively with the story. Um, and that could help you in the future whenever you're trying to, get a scene right and make the ideal cut. Um, I've got a part two for this. If you have to be around the set and you've got to be part of the filming process, before you start editing again, you should take some time to yourself, maybe isolate yourself from people and the crew that were on the set. And maybe take a vacation. Steven Spielberg was actually an example in the book. He apparently takes a vacation to detach himself from the filming process before coming back and sitting down with the editor and getting all the scenes right. You should also not really stick around the director during the filming process either, because they've got the most knowledge and they have the most feeling about the film. Uh, like Francis Ford Coppola, or Coppola, I don't really know how to say his name, but I think it was in the book that Walter Murch said he didn't really. I gotta find it. I'm sorry. Good, 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 good. Well, whatever. This is taking time. But I'm assuming he did what he said he would do in the book and separated himself from the director. And yeah, I think it's a pretty good idea. I don't know how long this is, but I'm wrapping this up because I feel like I've outlined all my points pretty well. So my questions are: do you agree with where Murch placed the rules in order of importance? Like, do you think emotion should be up top instead of, let's say, the story or consistency? Or do you believe they should be ordered different? And then he compared editing to magic performed by Houdini. Do you think poor quality of like shooting can be made up for with editing later at the date, a later date? Let me know. All right, I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Bye bye.